We're now approaching the end of one of the most jam-packed activity centers of a game I've ever seen. To cover Yakuza 5 in the way I have is admittedly not clever or efficient. To try to get you to see how big this game is by making the biggest goddamn video I ever will, to express its scale in literal form. But I hope I have so far successfully made it a fun and interesting journey that captures Yakuza 5's breadth of activity and tone. It has had its ups and downs, and this lead up to the finale will be just as bumpy. The opening scene is sadly a little weak, though it's a problem only really apparent in retrospect. We open in Fujita's office. He's written up a confession, saying that a lot of trouble could have been avoided if he just took this route from the get-go. He's killed. His letter goes up in flames. A gun is planted in his hand and an Omi pin on the floor. Despite being the opening note of the introduction, this is a tiny mystery in the grand scheme of things, not largely relevant to where things are going. That's not my real problem. Where this winds up feeling hollow is in how we never get Shinada's thoughts on this. We never even learn if he learns Fujita has died. This man was incredibly important to him. Their meeting was a pivotal part of Shinada's going to Tokyo. But Shinada and many other characters feel different here, and it's very strange. Bases are loaded, the cleanup hitter is here, and he's gonna foul off a few pitches. This is the first problem the pre-finale runs into. It can't make room for everyone and everything at the table. And I don't expect it to try, but things have changed, and many of these changes are strange and unannounced. Character beats promised earlier go unremarked upon. Motivations suddenly change, and strange new perspectives are bolted onto old characters. What happened to Fujita was less an advancement of the mystery, and more an immediate culling from it. RSVP revoked. Over the course of this series, I have had a character counter for everyone outside of sub-stories. If they had ongoing relevance of any sort, I tried to remember to jot them down. Yakuza 5 has a cast over 60 strong. That's an insane number to keep track of. Luckily, you don't need to chart all of them. I mean, hey, we're one down already. So if I cull all but the characters who have a lasting, meaningful, and dynamic role in the main plot, one which has to be followed over time and affects other characters, that leaves me with 30. That's still more people than I actually know. But then, owing to that wonderful theme of identity, most of them are hiding who they truly are, so we're right back up to 60. The finale at first struggles to fit them all in, and then stops trying. But by then, it's too late to really answer all of the questions these characters alone have raised. I like parts of Yakuza 5's finale, but it has a lot of problems, and this is one of the more understandable ones. I think the biggest issue is that it's big. In Yakuza 4, the finale was a singular chapter. All the pieces were in place, so it tossed them at each other. In Yakuza 5, it's another part. 4 chapters of maneuvering and then the grand finale. And it doesn't actually have 4 chapters worth of stuff to do, and that's kind of surprising. I mentioned during part 3 how you occasionally have to look back and admire just how big and varied an adventure it is. Well, now it's so large that it can weigh down on itself. Memories from further back are really fuzzy. Names, faces, and events are starting to blur. So I walk into Kamurocho and this finale with a mix of vigor and apprehension. Kinda like Kiryu. With that in mind, the final part's first port of call is reminding you who is important and why. Kiryu notices he's being followed but presses on into the city regardless. A host at Stardust tells us that the town has been strange lately, with the Yakuza more or less disappearing. You know, I haven't thought about the Tojo much lately, but imagine you're in the clan and you're not one of the 10 people involved in the Shadow War. As far as you're aware, Daigo is gone, Majima is dead, and Aoyama was killed by Daigo's traitorous bodyguard. 2 tiny clans managed the former 2, and the 4th chairman came out of hiding, and then gave your mate to hiding. I'm kind of amazed Tokyo isn't seeing a ton of panicked infighting, land grabs, bids for power, and families jumping ship. We saw what happened when Daigo was comatose. This looks like a large chunk of the upper management just fractured without explanation. There should be pandemonium right now. But okay, I'll buy it for the sake of the story. The 30,000 strong Tojo itself has gone to ground. Kiryu decides to confront his tail, letting himself get ambushed in an alleyway.
福岡でのご活躍も聞いています。堂島の竜は健在といったところですか。
その口ぶりじゃ森永の手下ってとこだな。
手下というよりは協力者という方がいいかもしれませんね。
The two have a really awkward conversation, but I love that Kiryu has no patience for Baba trying to act cryptic.
と考えていいんでしょうか。
答える必要はない。
Still, Barber tries to be Machiavellian, saying that if Majima's death hadn't drawn Kiryu here, then they would have had to change their plans. And Kiryu has a better response to meeting a man involved in Goro's death than his sworn brother did.
あなたはどうしますか？
ここでお前を倒し、黒幕の居場所を吐かせるだけだ。
Kiryu's just done with these people. Now, to be fair to Barber, he does have something up his sleeve, but he is being very roundabout, saying that since Kiryu's getting violent, they'll have to fight. Let's talk about Barber's unique battle theme.
行きます。
Okay, that's really all you need. Barber is a kid in an adult world. He's out of his depth, stuck between his old loyalties and his new appreciation for Saejima. His backstory and twists strain belief considering who he turns out to be, but there is an agreeable character under that. He's not brave or wise enough to know how to cut ties, and so he's trying to wriggle his way out from under his own boss and escape the conspiracy alive. He's a worm, but you don't begrudge a worm for trying to survive. He didn't start this fight to stop Kiryu. He wants to see if the legends are true. He needs every assurance that these people will win out. So let's get the kid believing in dragons. I don't hate Barber as much as it may seem, but I still find him dull and it's funnier to take the piss out of him. Plus the dialogue before this fight is very stilted and doesn't convey subtext well at all. It feels like a limp excuse for a fight when really there is something there. And this is another something that the final part is going to consistently suffer from. You really have to claw out the meaning, and not to sound lazy, but I usually don't find myself needing to do that. Most of the time it's pretty clear why cool things are happening. You know, in subtext or text. So after Kiryu beats him, the two go back to New Serena where we get some juicy info, along with repeating basically everything Daigo told Kiryu at the beginning, but with a few more details. I'm going to omit a lot of the repetition. So Aoyama and Morinaga were working together from the get-go. Moriyama were meant to kill Daigo, but after he evaded their plot, Aoyama went rogue and made a bid for the Tojo himself. Morinaga killed him to try and get the plan back on track. And he went about this cleverly. They had two jobs in Fukuoka: assassinate the chairman and lure Kiryu back to Tokyo so he could be killed there in big showy fashion. It turns out the Tojo were preparing for the wrong thing. All along they thought a war was coming. What was really happening was a plot to demoralize the Tojo so badly that they would be susceptible to being absorbed. That's why Kiryu couldn't die in Fukuoka. He needs to die on Tojo turf for the biggest impact.
登場界を名実ともに手に入れるつもりだと。
3万人と言われる登場界の兵隊すべてを手に入れたい。無傷のままでね。そのためには全面戦争を避け、最も効率のいい方法で手に入れる。あなたたちはそのためのキーマンだということです。
Kiryu then asks who's running this plot since Watase didn't seem the type. Barber explains that there's also a lot of confusion on the Omi side. Watase isn't in on it, the Omi guy in Nagoya is dead, and that leaves just one possible ringleader.
私は青山、森永を使ってこの絵図を描いていたのは。
Ah, Yakuza 5, you sneaky bugger. Now we got character switching. Across town, Saejima is waiting on Serizawa. He's been dealing with some work issues. The case is dragging on and people are losing faith. Man, how meta. How very meta. Katsuya drives past so that Saejima can be told who he is. And then the big man is given his job. Track down Morinaga. And this leads us, for the last time in the series, into Purgatory. After this game, the Florist of Sai will be totally absent from future stories, and his minor role in this game likely speaks as to why. You've no doubt noticed by now that Serizawa is a little shady, and spoilers, he's not who he's claiming to be. Remember, Hanaya here hates a lot of the Yakuza, and knows everything that's going on all over town. I find it really doubtful a man with his knowledge and connections doesn't know who Serizawa really is, and would be really worried that this man is in town, standing right outside Kamurocho Hills no less. Upon arrival, he makes it clear he knows what Saejima is wrapped up in and what he's in it for. He definitely knew Saejima was coming. Here's how this scene should have opened. Saejima, mate, why are you hanging out with the Omi chairman? Oh, him? Well, he drove me over... Hang on, he's fucking who? He's who? Actually, yeah, why didn't I recognise him? And then Serizawa's plan is basically fucked. Except it wouldn't be, because I have no idea why he has us hunting Morinaga actually. But Yakuza 5 is basically playing crime thriller jazz at the moment. It's doing a little freestyle. From a writing perspective, the Florist has always been at least a bit of a crutch. He's an easy fix when the story is written into a corner, but he's also very restrictive. Villains have to be written around him, mysteries have to evade his watchful eye, and, well, he can see everywhere. He does help the story, and I'd say so far he's been used well, but he is also a limiting factor in where a villain can be and what they can do. In this moment, Yakuza 5 makes the Florist blooming stupid. It ignores what the series has made him capable of and hopes you won't realise what's quite wrong here. And admittedly, I didn't until way later. I think someone involved in the writing must have realised the problem Kage brings, and hey, since he hasn't actually had any big involvement in the stories since 2, they just figured it was easier to drop him. The series has really evolved beyond the need for him, he's vestigial by now. So what is Kage really doing here? Well, he's here to give Saejima another Colosseum moment. The tiger wants Morinaga's scent. And funny thing, someone else came here asking after the same man. Yeah, it is. In the Colosseum we see, hey, I know this guy. Don't tell me. Aizawa! That's Aizawa! I remember he was underground, but I thought he was dead. I mean, looks like he's on the way there. This is going bad. But then he finds his resolve and comes back with murderous intent. Wow, Saejima really took the bloodlust out of these people. Worried by Aizawa nearly killing the guy, Hanaya refuses to tell Aizawa where Morinaga is. So Saejima and Aizawa sit down and talk about the guy. Aizawa and Morinaga came up in the Tojo together. Slightly smaller big man here believes Morinaga betrayed everything they stood for. But without him, Aizawa has no idea what to do next. Morinaga pissed on their brotherhood, and that pisses Saejima right off. Saejima decides to remind Aizawa how important that bond is the only way he knows how, by beating a reminder into his soul. He wants Aizawa to find his Kyodai and get his answers, and if those answers aren't good enough, beat him until he's satisfied. Get his brother back onto the path of righteousness. And so the cage descends. I think this bit is serviceable, ignoring everything I said about Hanaya, which really isn't that bad in the moment. The problem is, as I've said, it's kinda hard to remember Morinaga and Aizawa after so much time away from them. It deflates a lot of the emotional impact of this moment. Still, I can see Aizawa has spirit. Problem is, Saejima's is Herculean. Down he goes. The Florist comes out, Saejima having given him the match he wanted. And for that, he's willing to give the two Morinaga's location. Alright, I'm ready to find the guy and remember who he is.
お前にその現実を受け入れられるだけの勇気があればの話だがな。
どんな現実が待っていようと、俺は兄貴の今を知りたいです。一人で道を歩いていけない気がするから。
森永の今の居場所、それは警視庁カムロ署地下2階の霊安室だ。
Fucking Memento Morinaga! So that ends the last meaningful interaction with the Florist of Sai. 5 games, culminating in a really mean prank. I can think of less honourable ends. Date's reintroduced. This scene raises suspicion that Katsuya murdered Fujita and Morinaga, and that's going nowhere, but this scene did also reintroduce Date. He'll head to Serena and say meaningful sounding things about Kiryu. Now, while Katsuya isn't responsible for either death, he has killed Watase's mood. He's heard that Osaka Enterprises has moved on Kamurocho, and worse still, the Tojo are not fighting back. He can't let that rat fuck get ahead.
戦争に決まっとるやろが。わしらも東京乗り込む。勝也の好きにさせてたまるかい。
We're on chapter 2 now, and this finale is still setting the table.
渡瀬の兄貴が動いたんだな。はい。これであとは役者さえ揃えばいよいよというところだな。
And for Akiyama, 500 million is on it. This is Katsuya's offer for cancelling Haruka's debut.
あんたそこまでしてあの子の夢を打ち砕きたいのか。
もし彼女があの舞台に立つようなこととなれば最悪。いや、何でもありません。
The two do their routine again.
前にも言いましたが、あんたは演技派だ。
And Akiyama doesn't buy Katsuya as evil. He thinks Kanai is the real conniving one. When Katsuya talked about Park's death, Akiyama saw real remorse, so he can't see Katsuya being really as bad as he makes himself out to be. And yeah, talking about Park hits a nerve.
くだらない話はいい。返事を聞かせてください。
当然ですが。
じゃあそのためなら大阪芸能いや大阪工業を敵に回してもよいと。
ええ、もちろん。
It is a solid moment, seeing that Akiyama can actually figure out someone he bounced off of before.
ただいま。
Hey, Hannah. And he collapses. But Shinada has been waiting.
え
And he needs money.
3億と2000万ほど。
Is there just an aura around Shinada? Does the game just get more expressive in his presence?
貸してください。
So, the two exchange everything they know. Sawada was, for whatever reason, aware that the Kuroha family was plotting an attack on a concert, so Shinada is here instead of looking for Daigo, and he wants to pay the cancellation fee. Akiyama confesses that he's looking after Haruka and will not terminate the show. Too many dreams are riding on it. He'll just have to deal with any threats. What's really amusing here is that they float the idea of a bomb threat, but Shun is willing to take that chance. Hey, new idols are always at risk of bombing. At least this kind takes a few people with you.
手が届く時に掴み取らないとダメなもんだ。次のチャンスはなかなか訪れない。
Let that be a lesson to the audience. Get your dreams done before you go to the big show. There's no guarantee you're coming back. Anyway, these two need more to go on, so they decide to team up and track down the company that books the Japan Dome, the mysterious Mao Incorporated. The gameplay for this section is really simple, just two easy objectives about town. But honestly, I sort of wish a lot of the finale was more this kind of speed. It's a lot of exposition that honestly does more to knot the story up than tie it together, when what I really wanted was more of the leads meeting up and playing off of each other. Shinada and Akiyama go together really well. I'm having a blast just walking around having them tag team goons as they work to get a piece of the mystery. You get way too little of a good thing, as in no time flat you're at the company, and Shinada just stands silently behind Akiyama, adding nothing to the scene. It's almost as if he should be doing something else. But hey, the president has some startling revelations. Katsuya, Park, and Majima were all friends. Why, Katsuya and Majima still hang out. T-Set going to Osaka Talent was actually a ploy devised by Park and Katsuya both. Their idols' rivalries a calculated move to drum up buzz. And as far as this guy knows, the concert wasn't getting cancelled. It was merely getting postponed by a single day.
あさってじゃあ新曲の振り付けが間に合わないからとか言ってたけどさ。
Akiyama has no idea what to make of things anymore, and yeah, I'm right there with him. Chapter 3 opens with Katsuya doing naked thumb push-ups in his hotel room, so in this scene we can see his crane. I mean, the bird on his back. In animal symbolism, the crane represents good fortune, peace, longevity, and healing. In Chinese imagery, the animal also ferries souls to heaven. This is a very good reveal. In conjunction with what we just learned from the Mao president, it gives us a lot of insight into Katsuya, namely that he is indeed a man of peace. He was trying to find the letter to protect his friend Majima from the rest of his organization. He couldn't be straight with Haruka and Akiyama because he didn't want to involve civilians in a Yakuza dispute. And it is a confirmation that he does not intend to cancel the concert. He's carrying Park's wishes, her soul, to that stage. The man puts on a front so he can live up to the bird on his back. He puts out a news report seen by Kiryu and Saejima, announcing that T-Set will be replacing Haruka at the Japan Dome. Kiryu manages to interpret this as a message meant to summon everyone to the hills, and gives a little message of his own for Baba to pass on to Haruka.
諦めるな、とな。
それだけですか？
ああ。
Meanwhile, Saejima goes to get answers on an injured Aizawa's behalf. Shouldn't you be reporting to Serizawa? Oh, maybe Hania let him in on things. This leads to a really fun extended battle sequence where we can choose to play either as Kiryu or Saejima. I do sort of wish they ran into each other and whoever you didn't pick came along as an AI fighter, but no joy unfortunately. Katsuya has had the place shuttered, setting the stage for either of the two to fight their way through. It's really nice to see the place finished after so many games. This joint has been under construction since Yakuza 2. That's 6 years of construction. Just standing in this place gives a great sense of resolution, that in some way, things are over, they're changing. Still, all this real estate couldn't fix the Tojo's money problems. It's still cursed. Let's talk about these stairs. Did you know Yakuza 5 has stair attacks? I discovered these by total accident. They're not very useful, but they're awesome. They send people tumbling. You have to stand at a very exact distance from enemies while around stairs to get them off, and even knowing they exist, I can't trigger them consistently. Stairs are pretty rare throughout the game, so I find it fascinating that they have unique interactions. The fight continues inside and... Hey, Katsuya! Your boys are ruining your mate's tower! You're a bad friend, Ka-chan. Alright, I'm coming up there. Let's see how you like it. Yeah, that guy's definitely dead. Speaking of killing, let's keep going up. Is that the highest point you can throw people from in the series? This battle is shorter than last game's trek through the tower, and less inventive. There's nothing akin to the Darkroom gimmick. It is going to be followed by 3 back-to-back boss fights, so maybe it's playing a little on the safe side. Inside Katsuya's hotel room, we find the man waiting on us.
Saejima.
But we're waiting on one more. I love that Watase must have missed everybody and everybody on the way up.
場所を移しませんか?
Katsuya leads the group to the roof and begins what is perhaps the craziest play in the series. Katsuya knows something is going on, and that he's been painted as the perpetrator.
はっきり言いましょう。違います。
He thinks all of the recent events that he's been made to look guilty of were orchestrated by a shadowy puppet master in a bid to get these 4 to Kamurocho where they would all kill each other, taking down the Tojo and Omi heads without needing to take them head on.
漁夫の利、ちゅうやつか。平たく言えばそうでしょう。
And having figured that out, what's the plan, cats? Well, he's brought all of them up here to kill each other, figuring that a grand showdown like this will definitely bring the mastermind out into the open, where the survivor can learn the truth. This is, by my reckoning, both the raddest and the maddest plan in the series. It almost feels like a parody of the logic these stories seem to run on, an utterly boneheaded move that depends on the story and villain contriving to sheer willpower. I'm all about it, but god is it stupid. If you want peace, prepare for a brawl, eh, Katsuya? But hey, they all want to know, and so do I. So one by one, the shirts come off.
理由はどうあれ、血が騒ぐのは極道ってもんじゃないですか?
Yep, logic has definitely been set aside, but in its place is a ton of energy. It blusters past how stupid it is on sheer bravado.
俺はそれでいい。その代わり俺が生き残った時は、東上会も近江連合も丸ごと一緒に潰してしまうかもしれん。俺は細かい計算はできへんからな。それでもええか？
お好きに。勝ち残ったやつにはそのぐらいの権利はあるでしょう。
つくづくバカな連中だな。要は喧嘩がしてだけなんじゃねえのか？喧嘩に飢えてきたってこと。
I do adore that before they begin, Katsuya realizes he should probably warn them not to actually go too hard on each other. Yes, we'll play into his hands, but be careful not to actually throw them too hard. If we really beat each other to death, that's a bust. I'll keep it in mind, cats. God, this is so daft. They're even taking it in turns. They're staging falling for it by actually falling for it. Now, the music is sick, but it even has a sort of, okay, let's get to work energy about it. After the two Tojo versus Omi matches, the two Tokyo boys are left standing. So it's time for a rematch. And we can pick this time. I actually got a little cocky in this fight. Tried to get some Tiger drops and Tiger dropped me. Oh god, he can use heat moves. Okay, that's the maximum ill luck. And I'm dead. It's time to mention, I am playing on Legend difficulty. It's a game about legends. I had to. Higher difficulties affect enemy health and aggression. They're harder to kill and want to kill you harder. Legend difficulty has one more stipulation. You don't get retries. It's right back to the start of the chapter. Or, your last save, but I wasn't saving. I was just going through it. I think it's a good time to mention that holding a shoulder button and X is fast forward. I only learned that recently and it came in handy. Alright, back up the tower. Kiryu and Saejima fight to a standstill.
どないする桐生。
黒幕がやってくるまでまだ喧嘩をやめるわけにはいかない。
そうやな。
Oh, you lovable fucking idiots. Just as they pass by the verge of realizing this plan has some holes in it. They do. The shooter is none other than Detective Serizawa.
あいつはデカなんかやない。あれはうちの親父。七代目近江連合会長黒沢翼本人です。今度は足か。
Oh, he was not going to incapacitate. Everyone on the other roof is confused. But don't worry, Kurosawa's making sure they're going nowhere. Kiryu demands to know why he's killing his own men. Kurosawa says he hasn't spared these idiots a thought since he became chairman, so why spare them now? Their role tonight is as sacrificial pawns, and they played their part perfectly. Saejima is disgusted, and Watase is distraught. He charges for his boss, begging for an explanation, saying he lived for nothing more than making the man proud. Disgusting as this is, his loyalty would have brought him right along with what he wanted. Watase is basically a different character from the guy we saw in part 1, who with his boss dying had seemingly tossed the man aside. Now he's ride or die. Which isn't a total contradiction, it just seems odd. Still, his voice actor sells his pain on pure passion. Kurosawa then has a strange answer.
それだよ。お前の魅力が邪魔だったんだよ。
He despises the kind of Yakuza these four are. This is to him a cleanup of both clans. He sees their idealism, their leading by charisma, and their commitment to codes and honor to be a corrupting force on a Yakuza that should be led by pragmatism.
お前らが夢を語れば語るほど、その夢にバカが群がっていく。
I wouldn't call Kurosawa my favorite villain by a long shot, but I find him an interesting one. Former villains who played with themes in this way tended to mirror one of Kiryu's virtues. Kurosawa is instead antithetical to Yakuza as a whole, particularly 5's core themes. This isn't a meta thing, but it is Yakuza 5 leaning on its own construction. That last scene, a dramatic rooftop showdown, is a franchise convention. Kurosawa punishes the heroes for thinking it would actually solve their problem, turning their own cliché against them. It was a setup to knock them down. Yakuza as a series sides with those who have conviction. If a character has a strong belief, they are presented with a degree of dignity. They hold power, no matter if their belief is for good or ill. In the last game, Munakata didn't really believe in anything. He was a selfish figurehead who wanted power for its own sake and dressed it up in fancy language. That's why, the moment he was disarmed, he crumpled and gave in. Katsuragi got a similarly undignified end. It's why Kunai in this game only looks imposing but is effectively powerless. And it's why Aoyama died a snivelling wreck. Kurosawa, funnily enough, does have conviction which the game respects. And that conviction is a smouldering hate for the series' convictions. He wants to tear down the virtues the series often champions. Kurosawa also plays on the theme of identity. Where others struggle with theirs, he weaponizes an assumed one. But what does he have to do with dreams? It may seem obvious, that he would decry them. But let's put that to bed for a second.
まずはお前からだ。死ね。
かっちゃん。
Kurosawa has a great reaction to this. Just tired annoyance. Katsuya stood not just in the way of that bullet, but in defiance of Kurosawa's entire philosophy. Watase's reaction, meanwhile. His actor is putting everything into this, to the point I'm almost certain he's going so loud he had to be compressed back down. That's the sound of you being drowned out, Kurosawa. Kiryu and Saejima pull themselves back up and stand in defense of the Omi officers.
お前だけは
今からそっち行って決着つけたるわい。
まだ弾は一発残ってる。先に死にてえ方は手を挙げろ。
なら俺が死のうか。
Oh good, Daigo's here. Never thought I'd say that, but he is the only man in the Tojo allowed to use a gun against other people. Kurosawa asks how he tracked him here, and Daigo says he's suspected him for a while, before the betrayal in Fukuoka, before the mysterious re-emergence of the Nagoya family, but when the man told him he was sick.
あの時、確かにあなたは顔色も悪く、体を壊しているように見えた。だが、目だけは違った。あの目は何か大きな仕事をする前の男の目。余命いくばくもない人間のものじゃなかった。
目は嘘をつけなかったってことか。
I'd say that eyes are the window to the soul, but that saying is painful. Kurosawa questions why Daigo went ahead making alliances if he suspected him of something. I'm going to admit that I may be being stupid, but I don't get why that would become a bad idea, so Daigo dodges that. He turned Kurosawa's plan to his advantage. Him and Majima played along knowing the Omi's inside men would bubble to the surface, where they could easily be dealt with. It also gave Daigo a chance to meet the other major Yakuza in the country, learning what he could from them.
さあ会長、難しい話はこれで終わりにしましょう。黒沢会長、お互い3万人の組織の頂点に立つ人間としてふさわしい引き際にしましょう。三途の川を渡るくらいまでは肩貸しますから。
Kiryu demands Daigo not to do this, but the chairman is now standing on his own 2 feet. Daigo wins the draw, but having missed most of the scene, doesn't quite get Kurosawa. He walks over and offers him a shot at redemption, have the dignity to take responsibility for his actions, or leave it to Daigo to send him on his way.
そのどちらも的外れな選択肢だ。
From behind, Daigo is shot by Kanai. Yeah, I can imagine this is the guy Kurosawa went to with this plot. Hell, Kanai echoes the boss's sentiments. Kiryu goes ballistic as Daigo collapses.
Daigo! Kiryu! 話してくれ。Daigo が。
He's on the verge of jumping the tower, and we get one of my favorite Kiryu moments from the pre-finale finale.
どうして俺が来るとこうなるんだ。どうして誰かが犠牲にならなきゃならないんだ。
Kiryu obviously does care a lot for Daigo. From the get-go, he probably would have wanted to help someone so dear to him. His survivor's guilt gives him a great deal of fear of getting involved in other people's lives. It's one of the downsides of his selflessness. He sees himself as a liability, someone who always fails others. In all of his heroics, all he ever sees is what he failed to do. Kiryu's relationship with Daigo is sadly mostly a product of Yakuza 2. Their interactions thereafter are minor, and I find that a bit of a shame, since it feels like there are a ton of words left unsaid between these two. But that's also tragically the point of their relationship. Kiryu has failed Daigo time and again. He's always too late to help him avert disaster. Kiryu is a man deeply riddled with regret. And bullets, but mostly regret. That ends chapter 3. Of 4. Kinda 5. Crossroads is a bit of a waste of a chapter. It's an hour of mostly tedious exposition and entirely annoying supposition. There are a handful of good moments, but it's maybe 5 minutes of substance.
なあ兄ちゃん、 同じ夢を追いかけた仲間が殺された時、夢と復讐どっち取る？
復讐ですね。間違いなく。でもそいつが復讐を望んでいないんだとしたら夢を取ります。そいつの夢も叶えるためにね。それが仲間ってもんじゃないですか。
悪かったな、いきなり話しかけて。
After Kurosawa's reveal and Daigo's shooting, it's one last pump of the brakes. We see the remnants of Dynachair practicing in a dingy studio. They talk about Park's letter and how Haruka is worried she won't be able to fulfill Park's dream and find her husband.
その夢を見続けたんだと思います。私のドームでのイベントは、その夢に区切りをつけるためにやろうとしてたんじゃないかって思うんです。
You're a little slow on the uptake. The T-set crew wander in, and before Yamura can chase them off, Nakai tells them that actually they're working together now. Park and Katsuya, who's in the hospital right now, had planned a big gambit from the beginning in turning these three into an idol supergroup, and they're performing their hit new song a few days from now. You fuckers are getting off so easy. It's a good thing you made 2 apologies. Genuinely, experiencing this for the first and second time left a bad taste in my mouth. They just get to turn around, walk in and say we're all friends now, and these lot can't turn it down because it's basically the only shot they have. But this is treated as a heartwarming reconciliation when really it just feels scummy. T-set are just way too mean-spirited in their own part, and the apology that in my eyes does more to redeem them is the one that's predicated on losing. To the game's credit, I kind of think they know this is not going to go well. Mai and Azusa do treat Haruka a lot better from here on out, but these girls are just on very different wavelengths. I don't buy them getting on for long. Anyway, Haruka now has to not only learn how to dance in time with, but lead 2 other dancers. With days. Well, good luck. But not before Baba comes along with a message. The 2 go to a nearby park where he passes on Kiryu's words and the 2 get to talking. The news that she's performing again doesn't exactly fill Baba with joy. Baba, without being able to say why, tries to talk Haruka out of doing the show just after giving her the message to never give up. Too spineless to spit it out, he confesses that Kiryu is nearby and tries to guilt her into seeing him, hoping he'll pull Haruka out of the concert and him out of this mess.
今は桐生さんのために彼のそばにいてやってもらえないか。
Haruka thinks on this, but turns it down, saying the 2 of them have both sacrificed too much at this point. It's bittersweet, but Haruka knows how her old man ticks. I think this scene is the one time the game really gets across what it wants with Baba. He's conflicted, and it's not just pathetic, but sympathetic. Being one of Kurosawa's lackeys, he shares their lack of belief and capacity for ruthless pragmatism. The difference is that he wants to believe in something. He wants Kiryu and Saejima to win, but he's too scared to fully put his faith in them and pull out of Kurosawa's plot. And he hates himself for this cowardice. Before she leaves, Baba solemnly asks how Haruka knew she could trust him, and she replies that he strikes her as the type of person Kiryu would consider a friend. And this further crushes him. Haruka heads back to the studio, and you get 2 warnings before you progress. This is the last time you'll have control of Haruka. Best of luck, Haruka. I bet you can handle the concert without me. Anyway, that's the good bits, and the first quarter of this chapter. The gang is at New Serena. Kiryu is just wrecked, and we're about to be right there with him. This is going to be 45 minutes of waffling. Date kicks this off by talking about how New Serena is the crossroads, of Kiryu's life. A place where he and people who follow his convictions always wind up at pivotal points, alongside recapping Kiryu's history with the joint. There's nothing really wrong with this speech. As a longtime series fan, it's pleasant to hear just how much we've done together. Then Akiyama comes in, and this is where the scene turns irritating. He has everybody's accounts. He has a picture of a terrifying Majima, and he thinks he has the whole thing figured out.
少しお時間をもらえませんか?
What follows is a long tale, in which Akiyama supposes the thought processes of Park and Majima, romanticizing and aggrandizing their possible off-screen intentions and explaining just how much struggle they should have gone through, how deep their relationship must have been despite it all. It's torturously saccharine, and really only served to make me like the two less, to say nothing of Akiyama. This is wank. I hate this attempt to make characters more interesting off-screen. Assuming Akiyama is near the mark, it honestly just makes Park worse. She knowingly put Haruka and others in the sights of the Yakuza. At the end of the day, very little of this comes around, and it's just Akiyama guessing at their motivations while Detective Date goes, "Damn, Shun, you're so smart and rich. You should have my job and my ex-wife." Date, to his credit, is in favour of cancelling the concert, and by now Akiyama, in the most agreeable he's been in minutes, agrees.
ダメだ。
But Kiryu stirs from his slumber to tell them not to. They point out that Haruka's life is in danger. Is he willing to risk that? And well, Kiryu can't quite handle it. He heads up to the roof. And in a moment that is admittedly nice in concept, Kiryu and Saejima swap roles from last game, with Saejima having to give him back his sense of purpose. Kiryu confides in him that he's genuinely scared, and for the last year, for the first time in his life, he's felt lonely.
昔は無所で暮らした時もこんな感覚なかった。もう俺も老いちまったってことなのかな。ちゃう。
Saejima explains that what matters is family. Even when Kiryu was in jail for 10 years, he had those he cared about waiting on the outside, and that made anything bearable.
俺もそうやった。25年も無所に入っとって、それでも希望を失わんかったんは、外に安子。それに。
Saejima, mate, you were on death row. You know how death row works, big man. Hamazaki really saved you from a rude awakening. Anyway, he tells Kiryu that even without Yasuko and Majima, and while he's clearly forgotten about him, let's throw in Sasai, to be sassy. Well, even having lost them, he never feels lonely, because he knows that they lived life on their own terms. Which is by and large not true of either of them, but hey, it works on Kiryu. Not like his speech from last year was much better. Kiryu returns to the bar.
誰なんだ?
He's the best character in the game, Kiryu. They've got a plan of the venue, and since it's a repurposed stadium, Shinada knows where they'd plant an assassin.
実際プロの世界じゃホームチームがこのポイントにスパイを用意するのは常識だったりしますから。
This gets the group talking about that fateful day Shinada got kicked from the league. He reveals that on the day no one was actually in place to intercept signals. Kiryu points out that Shinada could have proved his innocence if he'd just come forward with that. And they're about to do my boy dirty. I don't hate the dream spiel Shinada goes on, but fuck I hate the basis of it. Saying that fans should be kept blind to any dirt behind the scenes, only seeing the shiny end product that helps them dream again. Besides being patronizing, besides being something said by someone trying to cover his own guilt in Shinada's own part, this undermines Shinada and everything he went through. It seems to ignore that he was a sacrificial pawn meant to kick off a match-fixing scandal, which probably did just as much, if not more damage to the sport's reputation and those dreams, than him trying to tidy up his image. It's a line of thinking that would let the sport remain just as corrupt, but excuses it so it can look squeaky clean while people who work within it continue to be exploited, tossed aside, and have their own dreams ruined. Something Shinada's own part dealt with? This speech is trash, but really does explain the idol industry apologism in Part 3. It's another problem a lot of the pre-finale suffers from. It wants to have big, profound sentiments, and it takes every opportunity to try and provoke a meaningful seeming moment. Even if the idea is half-baked, delivered by the wrong person, or just really fucking stupid. It lands a couple of shots, but with machine gun fire, you'll do that on quantity. Chapter 4 finally ends on Kurosawa, sat in the Millennium Tower and surrounded by bodies.
最後の最後までどちらか片方が生き残り俺を倒すそれが勝也との約束だったんだろう真島
黒沢
さあ最後の一仕事手伝ってもらうとするか
So that's the pre-finale, and honestly I'm not too fond of it. I like the fight on the tower. I like that Barber does actually have a good scene. He pays off okay. There are a couple of good moments, but I think it's hamstrung by format. It somehow feels like a continuation and an entirely new angle. Important seeming questions are and will be left hanging while left field swerves take the fore. Characters seem out of step with how they were presented earlier. Weirder still, like all prior parts, it has its own style, but that style feels like it's trying to find a median of all prior parts, and it creates a weird tonal soup. It leads to great character beats and strong emotional moments standing shoulder to shoulder with really artificial speeches and wonky rationalizations. Sometimes a single line can be all four of these things at once. I suppose in that sense, it really is a perfect amalgamation of Yakuza 5, all of its best aspects mixed with its worst indulgences. Wild inconsistency may not be something to strive for, but it does keep you on your toes. With the concert a day away, we've some free time before the finale, and there isn't much to really do in Kamurocho. Well, okay, there's everything to do in Kamurocho, except go to Love in Heart, which I find kind of funny considering Shinada, but hey, that would be a bit of a bust man's holiday. He also absolutely refuses to play baseball in his hometown. Shinada can't do the two things that kind of define him where he was born. Besides that, everything is still here. Hours of minigames and side content, but we've covered much of it. Kamurocho has a cold and uninviting air about it. It's a strange vibe to have after spending tens of hours before getting here, and I find it really cool. A combination of time and tone make the town take on an unfamiliar feeling. You'd think getting back here would feel like coming home, but this isn't home. Not anymore. The disconnection that Yakuza 4 quickly alleviated is allowed to sit here, and it works for the story, though it does have a few downsides. One major contributor to that emptiness is a lack of sub-stories. There are disappointingly few, leading to little downtime for group interactions, which is a bit of a shame. What is interesting is the focus of those remaining sub-stories. First off, Kiryu can find the local Cafe Alps on the ropes, in need of something to bring back business. Kiryu calls Tatsuya, but he won't be available. You need to finish all of his requests, and that isn't possible at this point in the game. Now, as I've said, I like when content interconnects and rewards exploration. I'm less of a fan when systems gate each other. It's a fine line to walk. Granted, what this does is gate Amon behind you getting certain upgrades. It's a sly promise that this is going to be tough. You're going to need 2 health bars for this one, and I needed a lot more than 2. I mean, yeah, I beat the clan. Tricky buggers, except for Saejima because he is just that broken. Even Haruka gets a secret, easy-to-miss showdown against Noah Amon. But they're all dessert. The real conclusion to sub-stories is the game asking, how'd you like dinner? As I said long ago, Yakuza 5's tourism is mostly done through dining. So first off, it makes certain that you have been engaging with that side of the game. The final sub-story then is Akiyama needing to figure out some suggestions for new kushikatsu variations based on regional delicacies. Looking for leads, he goes to his fellow leads. And the final test of Yakuza 5's sub-stories. Do you remember what every city specialized in? All along, the game has taken you to diners, made you look high and low for certain foods. This checks whether or not you've been paying attention. I wish there was more, but I do love how humble an ending it is. There is actually one last secret sub-story which I didn't do. In the Underground Mall, a place this chapter never actually leads you to or flags up, you just have to remember it exists, a shopkeep gives you a giant souvenir fetch quest which would require backtracking to each and every town if you hadn't already stockpiled these items. This is not necessary for full completion, it's just there to get you a few goodies, and it's there if you have somehow ran out of things to do in Yakuza 5. There is one other odd addition to this finale. Should Akiyama visit his hostess club, Elise, he's told by the new manager Yuiko that business is bad and they need a shot in the arm. So she suggests getting girls from out of town. This leads to Akiyama, once again, asking for help from the lads. And if you've won the hearts of their respective hostesses, you can ask them to come down and help out at Elise until the troubles are over. Obviously, I didn't do this. Credit for this footage goes to Gogglebox Fairy. Doing this unlocks the final boss hostess. According to Yuiko, she's just past training. She's got the looks and she's got the energy. She's perfect. There's just one problem. She's got a bad personality. That's far from perfect. So, Akiyama turns to Kiryu to be her first client and see if she's ready. When Kiryu points out this isn't a good time, we get what is perhaps my favourite exchange between the two, with Akiyama threatening to tell Haruka about her dad going to cabarets. It's childish blackmail, and it works. Long story short, she's good at her job, and by all working together and poaching people countrywide, we save Elise. The fact there's a final boss hostess is just inherently funny to me, and that is about the only escalation left for the system beyond full voice acting. It's genuinely kind of incredible how not just the story, but many of the activities and systems have a narrative that all build towards conclusions in Kamurocho. It's not just Yakuza 5 is so many games in one, it's that it's so many games progressing in tandem that can make it feel so mind-bogglingly large in scope. And before I move on to one big final activity, I would be loath to forget the giant cone. The victory road for how much build-up it gets is a little limp. Around town you have a chance of running into Raiden. He's the local qualifier. Kiryu puts him down a couple of times and comes to learn he is irredeemably evil. A mercenary who delights in bloodshed. And while he isn't allowed to kill here, he makes sure to end his fights by permanently crippling his opponents. When the Victory Road finals open up, the gang aren't surprised to find out they're the competitors, though Kiryu warns he will not be holding back. He refuses to let any of them go up against the monster. This can be tricky. You're limited to a single health bar. Oh, I've grown soft worrying about that. And with it, you must survive 4 battles back to back. First against the 3 other player characters, and then Raiden. If that tie didn't sit well with you, well, good news. Kiryu wins here. Oh, poor Shinada. And Raiden, he is a 6 health bar monster. This is a test of endurance, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. This is selfish of me to say, but while the speech to Raiden is great, I can't help but feel a little let down after a whole game of build-up. I was expecting a real pop-off. I was expecting the Colosseum to feel like a big event. This is just a slightly longer tournament with a villain at the end. And afterwards, it's just the Colosseum again, with some quality of life improvements. You're given more information on how to score points and when you're doing well. I do quite like this. Besides making progression and point scoring more easily read and immediate, it encourages riskier, more aggressive play, giving the arena battles a unique drive. Plus, fighter rankings let you see if a tournament has worthwhile challenges, since the points you get to climb the ladder are relative to positions on the board. It is still dull to have to grind out unlocking tournaments per character, but hey, I can at least play as every character this time. That's cool, but I have to point out something. I do enjoy playing as each fighter outside of the Colosseum, but inside it, that varies a ton. For Saejima, this is incredibly easy, and for Kiryu, it's about right. For Akiyama and Shinada, it's just not that enjoyable. It's not that it's hard, it's that it's not balanced for them. Fights take ages, especially for Shinada. All the other characters have damage dealing counters and options to really play aggressive. Shinada lacks the toolset to keep fights moving. You're going at the AI's pace with pitiful damage output, which is a bit of a shame. I do love playing as Shinada, but when the content is balanced around Kiryu, it leaves half the roster in the dirt. So with that in mind, it can't be said that Akiyama and Tanemura were left out without reason last time. Kiryu and Saejima really are just on another level. Besides that, not much new to say. It's the Colosseum. I've never gone all in on it because while I do enjoy Yakuza's combat, the same arena over and over again quickly leaves me tired. I like variation and motivation. I lack the patience for this. I did get to unlocking 100-man deathmatch on at least 3 characters, but I didn't unlock the final 3 big challenge tourneys before boredom got the best of me. If I had a custom tourney mode and could set up fights, then I'd be set because Yakuza 5's combat mechanics are simple but stellar, second only to Zero's as the series goes. So, that's it. That's everything I feel like talking about. There's only the finale left. The finale, the proper one. Alright, first things first, get everyone fed, one by one. Man, this place used to do ice cream, that's kinda sad. Okay, alright, I'm so excited I'm going to sleep. We begin at the Japan Dome. Mai and Azusa are on top of the world. Haruka, meanwhile, is pretty withdrawn, and not just because if she bombs, or gets bombed, that's gonna ruin a few dreams. A few times throughout the finale, it hops back to Haruka, and she's starting to have doubts, likely spurred by everything that's going on, Barber's comment about Kiryu weighing on her, and really, just the realization that all along, this may not be what she's really wanted. But all along, she's trying to convince herself otherwise.
行こう。私たちの夢の舞台に。
Meanwhile, me and the lads are about to hit the idol concert, but the mama runs in. Kurosawa has seized the Millennium Tower and he has Majima hostage. Uh-oh, we better get over there. Something about this shot is just really funny to me. Holy shit. Look at Shinada, he was ready for that. That practice back in Nagoya paid off. Still, he's not quite ready for the goofy shit that's about to follow. They inspect the bodies and find Tojo pins. Akiyama, as he does, kicks into gear and explains these must be Omi imposters trying to incriminate the Majima family. Then comes the second wave. I love this. It's dumb as hell, but the escalation is fun to get caught up in. The whole town is at risk. They spend 5 minutes discussing what to do, the aura of their conversation teleporting the boys back every camera cut. Shinada offers to go and save Haruka, saying he'll fly under the radar and knows the stadium, and he gets Kiryu's blessing, as if he needed it. Saijima's taking Majima, no question. So Kiryu and Akiyama, they'll keep these guys busy. And we kick off. The finale is over an hour of brawling, and it will be great. It begins with an awesome battle where Kiryu and Akiyama team up against an army of Kurosawa's lackeys. It's great that we get to fire up Dragon Spirit one last time and just go to town saving the town. Kanai tries to muck in, but he's just nothing to Kiryu. And this shot is hilarious. Oh man, that's satisfying. Meanwhile, Team B, B standing for big, trek through the sewers which, oh god damn it, man, the Kuroha thought of everything. Not much to say, it's a sewer level. Though mid-combat dialogue rears its head once again. Saijima telling Shinada he's going to find a guy called Barber at the show, and to tell him that Saijima will wait on him no matter how long that takes for an oath of brotherhood. Shinada meanwhile can't believe the absurd lengths these guys go to for each other. It's a nice dialogue, but I feel bad for these guys. Their health won't drain while the cutscene is going on, so they just get smacked around for over a minute. Okay, we're done. Here's the anesthetic. After clearing a path, the two split up. The finale really does live up to the scale Yakuza 5 promises. It could only feel bigger if the Tojo came out of hiding to throw a few swings, but they'd just be getting in the way. This is war, and it has a backing track. Seeing as his skyscraper ambush didn't quite work last time, Kurosawa wants to try again. He wants to ruin rooftops for these people. Just because you don't see the fun in it. Saijima demands to see Majima, and his other brother from another mother is dragged out in chains. Kurosawa heads over, lets him free, and hands him his knife.
兄弟、俺らは殺し合いをせんといかんらしい。桐生ちゃんの命より大切なもの見捨てることはできんかった。
If Saejima doesn't beat Majima to death, Kurosawa is giving the order to shoot. Majima's sorry he let it get to this point, but now he doesn't see any option but to play along.
やらんかったら5万人の目の前で夢が散る。俺らが死んだところで悲しむ人間はそうはおらん。
What's really great about this scene is how Saejima and Majima start turning the tables on Kurosawa, both in foiling his plan and chipping away at his resolve. Kurosawa delights in breaking their morale, in lording over how he thinks he has these people figured out. But then, before the fight begins, Saejima thanks Tsubasa, saying he's glad to have a shot at his bro, and this just pisses Kurosawa off. He hates that this is exactly what Saejima would want, that despite all of his efforts, he just can't break these people. The fight is a Majima fight. Last time it was hard because Saejima was slow, but, well, Saejima just has no weaknesses anymore. He's the apex predator. Even Majima's IF-7 tech can't make this fight hard. Saejima, you may need to see Emoto. The blood loss is clearly worse than you thought. No, you can't afford to lose more blood. The fight goes on, and these two are just having the time of their lives, and Kurosawa can't handle it. He demands they keep going, until he realizes something must be wrong. They turn the ambush back around. On every level, these two just wreck Kurosawa. They so completely turn the tables on the smug fucker, it's great. We flash back a while, and Baba finally decides to do the right thing.
Baba-san, dane.
One look at the guy. It's all it takes.
Camera. 置いてってんじゃねえよ。ちゃんと持って帰れっつってんだよ。
And Shinada invents a reason to kick the guy's ass.
裏方なら裏方らしく、最後までてめえのやったことに責任持て。
But don't let the fans know. Okay, this does improve a little bit. Even if it's absurd that Shinada is telling an assassin that it's better to admit his deeds, kinda flies in the face of assassination, Shinada wants to punish his misdeeds and sloppy work.
あんたを信じて待ってる人間が悲しむだけだからな。
誰なんだそいつは。
殴った後に教えてやる。おめえみてえなガキには言葉で説明しても伝わらねえだろうからな。
He said to the man who was walking away. And well, it's a final boss, I guess. Yakuza 5 has a lot of repeat bosses. The only one who's getting something new this finale is Saejima, and even then, that's only new in the context of this game. But yeah, it's Baba. I mean, maybe he'd be a daunting fistfight for Haruka, who I'm sure could tiger drop him into next week. It's easy, and it's weird that this is the best note they could figure for Shinada to go out on. The fight itself is fine. It may as well be 2D, because I instinctively tried to frame it against the backdrop because it looks sick this way. Okay, to expand on this fight and be fair to both characters, it's also worth noting this fight doesn't use I Believe in You as its backing track. Besides being a finale and thus in need of something to set it apart, I think there's a bit more under the hood here. For Baba, this isn't a fight against Saejima or Kiryu, someone he had previously put stock in, even if it took him until now to decide to do right by them. This is Shinada, an unknown, who picked a fight with Baba over a matter of personal responsibility. Shinada had only just found it in himself to take his life into his own hands, and he's trying to make Baba do the same, not putting his belief and his fate in Tsubasa, Saejima, anybody. This is a fight for Baba to do right by himself. Or Shinada just wanted to beat fuck out of him. Why not? Okay, rockabye Baba. And the fight ends with a meteor tackle. Shinada collapses, and as he watches the show, his emotions get the better of him. Baba, overcome with regret, goes for the rifle. Feeling that in going this far, in not putting his faith in Saejima and living up to his hopes, he has failed him. Kosaka got the boys from Abashiri out here to come find Baba. Saejima gave them a ring and told them what to do.
As
Shinada watches, he's sad that unlike him, Baba has a place to go back to. Prison. I mean, hey Shinada, the rifle's right there.
もしもし。
東京旅行はどうだ、品田。
高杉さん。
急にいなくなるからよ。心配したぜ。
心配って、もうお金なら返したじゃないですか。
そうじゃねえよ。金じゃなくて、お前の心配してやってんだよ。
え？
そういやミルクって風俗嬢の姉ちゃんが釈放されたみたいでな。お前に伝えてほしいことがあるって言ってたわ。ゴムなしベッド90分3000でいいから店に来いってよ。みんなお前の顔が見たいってよ。帰ってこい、品田。
And that ends the story of the greatest chuckle fuck to ever walk the earth. Never before has a game made a discount at a brothel so emotional. Shinada is a one-shot character. On the one hand, I'm a little sad. On the other, it was mostly perfect. And seeing as perfect don't exist, that's about the best you can be. Shame about Fujita, though. He's the best character in the game, Kurosawa. Are you surprised? It was Baba. I'm starting to really doubt your ability to predict people. Realizing he's been thoroughly beat, Kurosawa goes for the easy out. You know, Daigo really missed his calling in life as a hitman. So now that Kurosawa is totally disarmed and Haruka is safe, it seems like we're... Oh god, they're still going. It seems there's still life in the old man yet. Well, a little. Katsuya asks why all the schemes if he's so close to the end of his life, and the man finally breaks and does a Yakuza thing.
どうしてもこの目で見たかったんだ。俺が築き上げた力のすべてをあいつが引き継ぐ瞬間をな。
Kiryu gets a call. Not now, Kiryu. He's told to get to Tojo headquarters on the double. Akiyama says he'll clean up here, and the two finally split. As Kiryu goes, Akiyama wonders something to himself, in a line that is both unbelievably clunky, weird, and awesome.
さあ、これで俺もこの町の伝説になれるかな。
It feels so strange to me. Akiyama has had the least personal investment in this, and that's saying something considering he literally invested the most in this. And this is about the best meaning they can fish up for him. And his final boss is Kanai and crew again. Which is a little lame. For a guy whose character boils down to cowardly prick, he sure is persistent. Oh, it's a little bit different. He's got a knife. I guess he was running to a payphone. Even after the fight is done, Kanai won't stay down. He gloats that it's only a matter of time until more of his boys arrive. They're not the best characters in the game, Kanai. The clans from all over the country flood Theatre Square, telling Kanai that Kurosawa's men have been mopped up, their dreams all brought together, bonded by their clashes with the Tojo. He's wanted by every Yakuza in Japan. I fucking love the music to this. God, that's so fucking good. That's the analysis. It's fucking good. It's stupid as hell, like so many other things, and I love it.
近江連合は今日までただの一度も頭を下げたことはない。せやけど、今日だけは頭下げさせてもらう。秋山藩、世話になった。
You beat up a large man many times. As a moneylender, you'll be glad to know, we are in your debt. This isn't a terrible ending. It just feels like the one character resolution that is a resounding shrug. Akiyama's motivation near the end weirdly shifts from protecting a dream in spite of danger from the Yakuza to hoping this battle will solidify his place amongst the legends of Kamurocho, something that was established as the case within moments of his introduction last game. Now, with the way the finale was playing out, yes, someone had to protect the town, and these battles are enjoyable. It's just the amusing amount of thematic weight that is suddenly created for this that sort of swings Akiyama's motivation in a really funny direction at the last moment.
あとは桐生さんがどう締めくくるか。それだけか。
Kiryu arrives at a Tojo HQ now blanketed in snow and bodies. The inside of the building is quiet. He makes his way up to the meeting room, where he comes face to face with Kurosawa's partner in crime and beneficiary. Aizawa?
どうしてお前がここに？
それが自分でもよくわかんないんすよ。
Back on the Millennium Tower, Majima is probably freezing to death, but that's irrelevant.
あんたの息子だったとはな。
Kurosawa finally explains why he did all of this. His climb up the Omi totem pole was not pretty. From his start in some no-name family, he clawed his way up by taking on work no one else would touch, enduring punishments for failure no one should suffer, and having to kill his own superiors to advance. He arrived at the top with his pride shattered, and was not happy with what he found up there. Then, earlier this year, he's told he's not got long left, and he panicked. He wanted to leave behind something worthwhile, and he had to find someone to leave it to. The twist of it is, all along, we have been seeing in action the twisted, desperate carrying out of a terminally ill man's dreams. In the winter of his life, he wanted to do something that took on greater meaning than himself. And underneath the terrible methods and his delight in others' suffering, he did it at least in part to spare somebody else all the suffering he himself had to go through. There is but a tiny glimmer of selflessness. Back at HQ, we see Aizawa's side of this. Kiryu yells that Aizawa doesn't deserve to sit in Daigo's chair, and he retorts that if he doesn't, does Daigo? He ascended to the top on nepotism, with a formerly powerful dad and the backing of the fourth chairman. Did he really earn his place? And Kiryu can't fully argue with this. Aizawa goes on that the Yakuza are too focused on connections, on charisma, on talent, when really, it should be ran by strength.
あんたたちカリスマと呼ばれる人間が派手に暴れ回る裏で 一人自分を鍛え続けた。
This speech is alright, don't embarrass yourself. This all sounds like he begrudges Daigo for succeeding on nepotism, but then accepting his dad's plan to be handed leadership through little effort of his own.
正直あんなクソみたいな親父が残してくれたもんなんてどうでもいいんです。
That sounds a lot like nepotism, but that's why Kiryu is here. Aizawa believes that if he can defeat Kiryu, he, by his own philosophy, deserves to stand at the apex of the Yakuza. There's a wonderfully soulless dynamic between these two. The cruel old man handing over unfathomable power to a stuck-up, presumptuous, pontificating idiot who does not care for him. The tragic irony being that the strength Aizawa speaks so highly of in some way describes Kurosawa's ascent, a man who climbed a mountain of bodies on his own strength and was broken by the experience. Kurosawa tried to spare somebody else that pain, but they're too naive to know better, to appreciate what they're being offered. They romanticize something that does not deserve it. Meanwhile, Haruka is debuting her hit single, before Kiryu hits this guy plurally.
ドリームラインとしての第一歩を踏み出します。ドリームライン、夢の航路、皆さんのもとに少しでも夢が運ばれていくことを願っています。聞いてください。ドリーム。
It's not even a word at this point, it's just sound. Thus begins their final song, a solemn ballad dedicated to the person by their side. A song about how, as life diverges, there's only one place they can be. Baba didn't kill Haruka's career, but boy howdy, their lyricist is trying. Anyway, I love this transition.
さあ決着をつけましょう、桐生さん。
Kiryu agrees to give him his fight, but first, the lesson that talent alone never makes a person. Hard work, dedication, and always growing are what do it.
越えるんだ。壁を見つけて越えていく。人ってのは乗り越えることでしか成長できねえんだ。
Oh, it was this game I heard it from.
それじゃあ俺はあんたを倒し、
乗り越えるべき壁が俺だというのなら付き合ってやる。二度と乗り越えようとすら思えない力の差、一度だけ味合わせてやる。
Kiryu is so fucking cool.
それじゃあ俺はあんたを倒し、行くぞキリやりますね。
Look at this guy trying to play it cool after screaming like that. Okay, you want Daigo's chair so bad? Fucking have it. Final boss, and it's good. He has so many fucking health bars. He has more health bars than every character put together. This is a drag-out brawl, and he's tricky too. When I was playing years ago, I had to bring so many health items to this fight. Now I can get him without, but yeah, he's a solid final test. Also, the music. It feels weird to describe a song as energetic and weary, and that's weary in a good way. It captures how far we've come. This is the final challenge for the player, and the last hurdle Aizawa has to clear for his dream, for the carp to become a dragon. This is a final fight worthy of the journey. Plus, when I call it a drag-out brawl, I mean a drag-out brawl. As Kiryu wears him down, proves his own belief wrong, he literally drags him further and further away from the seat of power he craves so much. The battle goes from the meeting room out into the lobby. Oh, that's not good. And finally, they're out brawling in the snow. Aizawa didn't clear the Dragon Gate. He's gonna fall at Tojo HQs. Right back down the waterfall. Over the course of this fight, Aizawa sees his dream slip from his grasp. Awesome. I fucking love Yakuza 5. As Aizawa lies in the snow, Kiryu tells him to fight his way up. He will be there when he has truly earned his shot at the top, as long as it takes. Kiryu may not share Aizawa's worldview, but he doesn't reject it, that if Aizawa had the strength to pull his way to the top, he will have earned it. But Aizawa cheated. He took shortcuts, betrayed those around him. He decried Daigo's nepotism while trying to excuse his own. In losing, he has been shown how he falls short of his own ideals. That strength he talks up, it doesn't belong to him. His fight with Kiryu was lopsided from the start. Kiryu had been fighting for hours, his wound had already reopened and only got worse as the fight went on. Kiryu wasn't even at his best, but he still came out on top. I can understand if you think the last second reveal of Aizawa's true self is lame, that all along he has been lying and is more or less a new character for it. I personally like it. It works with the theme of identity and brings a valuable penultimate view on dreams. Sometimes they can be misguided, naive, selfish. Sometimes an ultimately fair goal can come from a foul place. Sometimes, before we chase our dreams, we need to position ourselves to do so. We need to be worthy to pursue it. As I said, this was the penultimate dream. As Kiryu's own strength leaves him, we rejoin Haruka back on that stage. And well, she's about to follow in her father's footsteps. She turns and bows to her bandmates, and, having fulfilled Park's dream, decides to close the curtain on all of this.
実は皆さんにどうしても話しておかなければならないことがあります。親のいない私にとって養護施設で一緒に暮らす子供たちや面倒を見てくれるおじさんは本当の家族以上に大切な存在でした。でもその大好きなみんなから私は離れてしまいました。
She thanks all of those who have helped her, but says that to do this, she had to hide those she truly cared about, and she can't do that anymore.
でも私にはそれ以上に決して裕福とは言えない現実がありました。私は自分がアイドルになって成功することで
Okay, shouldn't do that. A fucking sea of Yakuza just hanging out in Theatre Square watching the Idol concert. With Akiyama just chilling. He's just hanging out. It's a good speech. It's a good speech. It's a good speech. And yes, it is the final statement on Dreams. And seeing everyone who came along on this crazy ride, all here to see what we fought for, it's funny, but it's really charming. I'm not trying to ironically distance myself from loving this, but come on, look at it. It's hilarious. Haruka has realized, after fulfilling the dream, that it isn't really hers. Her place is elsewhere. She sacrificed so much, got to the top, and just like Kiryu, she realized her dreams were far more humble, so she wants to step down. She's doing exactly what Kiryu did so many years ago. And when you climb to the top, people won't let you down so easy. And this apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
私を育ててくれたおじさんは昔 極道と呼ばれていた人でした。頼りがいがあるけど、でもどこかちょっと抜けてて、私はそんなおじさんのことが大好きでした。けど今はもうおじさんのことを家族とは呼んじゃいけないんです。
But caught up in the emotions of the moment, having seen Kiryu on TV earlier that day, she hates that to live this life, she has had to reject her own parent.
私は桐生一馬の家族です。
Dreams can blind, they can embolden, they can be shared, they can be stolen. They can creep up on us at any time in our lives. They can be so much bigger than we are. They can be corrupted by those who don't get it. They can change people's hearts for the worse and for the better. They can carry us through so many trials. And when lost, they can follow us like a spectre. Dreams are great and terrible, and so is Yakuza 5. And right at the end, after pursuing the dream for so long, Haruka realized where her real dreams lie. The last observation of dreams in Yakuza 5 is that you may truly reach it, only to realize it's not what you wanted, or that beyond that dream was just another one waiting. It could be the second you reach it or so much later, but for many of us, we're made wanting. Fulfilling your purpose may leave you itching for a new one, and sometimes grand aspirations aren't as fulfilling as just having a place to belong. The game says, ironically, appropriately, that sometimes the biggest isn't the best. And while the series won't be as kind to Haruka as what I'm about to say is, there's no shame in shifting gears. She could have picked a better way to go out, but we don't control our dreams. They control us. Sometimes we may be powerless before what we want. All we can do is run after it.
Haruka. しっかりして、おじさ
ん。夢じゃないのか。
違うよ。私はここにいるよ。
Every part of me says I should hate that. To really fucking go, am I dreaming? The balls of it. To end on another ambiguous fate for Kiryu, even if later games have remedied that. God, there was a prequel after this, that's mean. Hey, Uncle Kaz, have you seen Majima about? I've got a letter for him. But I love it. It just stabs right through me. The ambiguous ending, even if overused, does have its place when much of the finale was focused on the ability of dreams to sneak up on you from a variety of angles, and concluding on the message that one dream, achieved or not, may well just be the prelude to another. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. But that's not for this game. Still, let's indulge a fantasy for one moment. Every game in the series has had a premium adventure mode, a way to access all of the side content and sub-stories at once with no chapter progression or pesky story elements to muddy the experience. If you're in Yakuza for the side content, I'd honestly just advise speeding through the story to get here. I personally like the two intermingled. In most entries, there has been a mode where Kiryu and Haruka can hang out and do activities around the hubs. In Yakuza 5, this lets Kiryu and Haruka tour the entire country, playing games, eating out, seeing the sights. It's charming, though it's never much been my speed. In Yakuza 5, it does have one rather touching flourish. After enough wandering around any one hub, or if you chance into it, Haruka and Kiryu will have a dialogue. This dialogue is very strange and oddly bittersweet. It doesn't quite acknowledge it, but it seems almost cognizant of the ending, or at least exists in some strange parallel to it. Like, despite being together in this mode, there's a self-aware melancholy that this isn't how things really are. And even here, these two are holding back the words they want to say to each other. It's low-key, but it left an impression on me. And on that note, one last little example of just how much stuff is in this game, a non-canon holiday for two of the leads, I think we'll end this. Yakuza 5 is big, huge, colossal, grandiose, towering, pretty stonking large. Perhaps the only game that's so big that by the end, I can both struggle to recall the opening and somehow be nostalgic for it. Thinking of those chill days where I was just driving my taxi, only earlier that week in story terms. And this is its greatest strength and most glaring weakness. When comparing favourites in the series, people seem to gravitate towards 2, 5, 0, or more recently 7, with outliers for every other entry depending on what about the franchise most appeals to them. 5 has so much good in it, but it also just has so much in it. If you ask me if I love 5, I'd say sometimes. Like it? Sometimes. Dislike it? Sometimes. Hate it? Nah, never that bad. The characters can be so likeable and complex, their struggles interesting in a way that got me reflecting on myself and thinking about what they want, what I want. My reading on Dreams was likely just as telling of me as the game, but I think that is one of its strengths. It approaches the abstract value of dreams wonderfully. It shows the downside of dreams so often while never shattering them, while never misunderstanding why people ascribe so much meaning to them. Never understating the strength they give us, both in the mundane day-to-day and in those pivotal moments of life. It has so much to ask about them, so many potential lessons to take away. It doesn't have some grand answer to dreams, but then you can't have one. We each have our own and pursue them in our own way. The best we can do is learn from watching others. No one but you will know what you truly want, and even you may not be so lucky as to know. It's just that it says the words so much that it does start seeming silly, seeming thoughtless. You have to be open to play on the game's level, explore those aspects. Or you could be like Kurosawa, be a bit of a sourpuss. But even that guy is harboring a dream, loath as he would be to admit it. But it also has long, tedious stretches. It awkwardly shunts dreams where they don't really belong. It has some really underserved characters, and you can see it's trying, but it struggles to make all of them sing. I'd be amazed if it could make all of them sing. As an activity center, it's amazing. There is so much here and so much of it is genuinely enjoyable. The fact that there was this much to talk about is testament to the fact that it isn't just quantity. There's so much value and so much joy to be found here. But Yakuza 5 also gives me a slight melancholy, for silly personal reasons, because it's also something of a transitional title. A good few recurring characters and subsystems make their final appearance here. Nothing that I'd consider a great pillar of Yakuza's narrative or design, but they finish in such strange, humble form. The Florist, Revelations, Inner Fighter. The only thing that could be said to go out with a bang is bespoke arcade games with the fantastic gun rain. It's obviously doubtful this game was intended to be the final appearance of these things. That's just the way it wound up. And with so much jockeying for attention, it would be weird if they announced their finality so much if their termination was somehow a planned thing. At the end of the day, that's what it all comes around to. The series will never go for this scale again. Even the JRPG-styled Yakuza 7 isn't quite as wide in scope as this. And while this is an amazing entry that has something to offer everyone in the fandom, it is massively inconsistent. And on some level, that is charming if you're someone like me who likes really digging into this stuff, which is hardly a market to cater to. I don't think it singularly excels in any one arena beyond size, but in that arena, Yakuza 5 is the reigning heavyweight champion. Thank you for watching. Really, thank you for sticking with me through this epic project. I hope I'm using that word appropriately. I know it's been mutilated by the internet. This has been a long road, but a satisfying one to walk. We're already long past other Patreon goals, but I hope you'll understand a break to see some other games before we continue on to Yakuza 0. Some VR, some Eurojank, something to give everyone what they want. If you want to support me on Patreon and put me even further behind my obligations, please do. You'll find a link in the description. If one-off payments are more your speed, I have a Ko-Fi I sometimes remember to link. If that isn't your style either, I understand, but please do spread the video to anyone you think might be interested. But don't blame them if they say, you realize how many hours that is, right? I have stuff to do. I hope I've entertained you. I hope I've gotten you more interested in Yakuza. And while this may be way too lofty for a gaming video, I hope you'll take some time to think about your dreams. They're complex buggers, tricky, and while we may never truly figure them out for ourselves, while they may be daunting, they give us will, they give us purpose, and that's worth any number of hassles. Thanks for watching.